Okay, this video is going to cover Chapter 18 of Improving Vocabulary Skills. Chapter 17. I encourage you to go and get your book and follow along with this. I'll save you a lot of time. So let's just go through these words and take a guess as to the parts of speech. So we start off here with cryptic, deficient, depict, detrimental, implicit, inhibition, there's a clue, ironic, rupture, saturate, 8 sound, vindictive. So our first word here is cryptic, and this one is an adjective. Whenever I ask Thomas what's happening in his life, he always gives the same cryptic reply. It's a green world, my friend. Next to the dead woman's body was a cryptic note that said, "Not now." So what cryptic is puzzling. So by puzzling, what we mean is cryptic is often describes something that someone says or something that someone has written, meaning that what they've said or what they've written is unclear or puzzling. It's not clear what the person meant. There's actually a science called maybe there's not. There's a science that's or a thing called cryptography, and what that is that's the art of writing or solving puzzles. So a person who makes puzzles, like for the newspaper, is I believe is sometimes found a cryptographer. So it comes from the same word of cryptic, meaning puzzling or unclear. Deficient. Deficient is an adjective. When people have too little iron in their blood, it sometimes means their diet is also deficient in iron. Jill's manners are deficient. For example, I've never heard him thank anyone for anything. So deficient means lacking. So normally when we use deficient, we mean lacking something specific. That something specific is missing. So in the first example, it's saying that the person's diet, the food they eat, is deficient in iron. This can lead to a disease that's called anemia when you have a deficiency of iron. But specifically, it means that you're lacking, and by lacking we mean that you don't have enough iron. The second example I would say is actually a little bit weird. It's saying that his manners are deficient. That's for me, that's a little bit of an odd way to use it. I normally think of deficient as meaning that something is describing that something is missing or that there's not enough of something. Our next word here is depict, and this one is a verb. The painting depicts a typical 19th century summer day in the park. Harriet Beecher Stowe's novel, Uncle Tom's Cabin, depicted the cruelty of slavery so forcefully that the book helped to begin the Civil War. Depict means is to show. Now, the way I always think of this word depict is that it ends in pict, which sounds like picture. So depict is like painting a picture of something, showing a picture of something. And it can literally be a picture, right? A picture can be what we would call a depiction of something, meaning a showing of something. But you can also depict things with words, right? By describing things. So in the second one, this famous novel, Uncle Tom's Cabin, showed to the world, how cruel slavery was, or how bad slavery was. Our next word here is detrimental, and this is an adjective. Do you think all television is detrimental to children, or are some programs a positive influence on them? The gases from automobiles and factories have been so detrimental to the environment that some of the damage may be permanent. So what detrimental means is damaging. Now, if we look at this, we'll see that in both cases, detrimental is followed by to. So this is a common thing. So what comes after to is the thing that is hurt. So in the first example, it's asking, is television detrimental to children? Meaning, does it harm the children? In the second example, it says, gases are detrimental to the environment. So it's saying that they harm the environment. If you take a look at the picture, the man is smoking, right? And that's detrimental to your health, right? If you do that, that's a negative thing that can damage or cause harm to your health. Our next word here is implicit, and this one is an adjective. When the gangster growled, "I'm sure you want your family to stay healthy," Harris understood the implicit threat. Although it's never been said, there's an implicit understanding that Carla will be promoted when Earl finally retires. What implicit means is unspoken. And this actually lines up with what we're talking about in terms of inferences. Um, the word imply is the verb that implicit is based on. But basically, something that is implicit is something that is not stated but is understood to be true. And it's when we say that something is implicit, it means that it's clear, even though nobody is saying it. It's clearly true. So, in the first example, the gangster, the criminal says, you want your family to stay healthy." He's not saying with his words, "I'm going to kill your family," but it's very clear that's what he means, right? So it's not an inference that's hard to make. It's an inference that is very clear to make. In the second example, it's saying there's an implicit understanding that Carla is going to be promoted when Carl retires. So it's something that everybody knows and is very clear, but it hasn't been stated. Okay. So our next word here is inhibition, and this one ends in tion, making it a noun. A 2-year-old has no inhibitions about running around naked. Sarah's family is openly affectionate, with no inhibitions about hugging or kissing in public. What an inhibition is an inner block. Now, inhibition is related to the verb inhibit, and inhibit means to stop something from happening or to slow down something from happening. When you inhibit something, it may be that you completely block it, but not necessarily that you completely block it. So basically, but what an inhibition means is something internal in yourself that will keep you from doing doing something. Now that something could be a negative thing, like running around naked, or it could be not a negative thing. Like, for example, a lot of people have inhibitions about either singing or dancing in public. Meaning, singing and dancing, they're not necessarily bad things, but inside of them, they're worried that other people are going to judge them or make fun of them. And so it's not that anybody's saying to them, "Don't sing, don't dance." It's just something inside of them that keeps them from doing it. In terms of, running around naked, obviously that's not acceptable in society, but I think that the majority of us internally wouldn't want to do that. That there's a part of us inside of us that keeps us from doing certain things. Inhibitions is a word that's often talked about when people talk about drugs and alcohol. One of the reasons that people like to drink alcohol is that it lowers your inhibitions, meaning it makes those blocks inside of you weaker, so that someone who has inhibitions about, dancing, if the person drinks alcohol, those inhibitions get lower and they feel free to dance. Or if someone has inhibitions about talking to strange people, when they have alcohol, those inhibitions get lower and they're able to talk to people who they don't know. The next word here is ironic, and this one's an adjective. It's ironic that Loretta is such a strict mother because she was certainly wild in her youth. The Gift of the Magi is a short story with an ironic twist. A woman sells her long hair to buy a chain for her husband's watch, while her husband sells his watch to buy ornaments for her hair. So, what ironic means is unexpected. Ironic comes from the word irony, which, if you've ever taken an English class, I don't mean an ESL class, but an English literature class, you'll learn about. When we talk about irony, it means that the result is sort of opposite of what was expected, and in that sense, it's unexpected. So, in the first example, Loretta, when she was young, was a very, very wild child. So you would expect that she would allow her children to be wild because that's how she was. But in reality, it's just the opposite. She's actually very strict. In the second example in this story, the short story, which is actually a very famous short story, the ironic twist is that the woman is selling her hair to get her husband a watch, but the husband doesn't have a watch anymore because he's selling his watch to get stuff for her hair, which he doesn't have. So the irony there is that the thing that they're trying to do, they're not able to accomplish. Our next word here is rupture, and this one's a verb. It can also be a noun, but let's talk about it as a verb. If the dam were to rupture, this town would disappear under many feet of water. The bulge in the baby's stomach was caused by a muscle wall that had ruptured and would have to be repaired. So, means to come apart. Another word for rupture means to burst. Pardon me. Rupture normally has the meaning of something that is coming apart or falling apart because whatever is inside of it has expanded and gotten very big. So in the dam situation, it's not there. It's not the same as something from the inside coming and breaking it apart. But rupture is often used with water. For example, if you took a balloon and you just kept on filling it with water, eventually it would rupture, meaning it would break apart because of the force of the water in it, fills it to a point where it's going to break. In the second example, it's saying that there was in the person's stomach, there was a bulge, meaning something pushing out from the stomach into the walls of the abdomen, and because of this pressure, it burst through. It came through. Sometimes you feel like if you go, I know I feel this at Thanksgiving. If you eat a lot of food, you feel like your pants are going to rupture because your your stomach feels so full that it's pushing out. So rupture is this idea of something, pushing from the inside and breaking through because it's gotten bigger. Our next word here is saturate, and this ends in an ate, and this one is a verb. Most people like their cereals crunchy, but Teresa lets her sit until the milk has saturated every piece. Studying history for 3 hours saturated my brains. I couldn't have absorbed one more bit of information. Saturate means to fill, but saturate is often used with liquids again. So just like we said with rupture, often being used with liquids, saturate is too. So for example, if you go out in the rain, a heavy rain, your clothes will become saturated, meaning they'll become filled with water. In the first example, it's saying she likes her cereal to be saturated, meaning that all of the cereal is like filled with milk. So you can talk about it with liquids, but like in the second example, it's saying like your brain is saturated. So it's like there's so much information in your brain that there's nothing more that can fit in there. There's no more space. to fit into your brain because it's totally full. Okay, and here's our last word, and this one's vindictive, and this is an adjective. If a woman refuses to date my older brother, he becomes vindictive. One way he takes revenge is to forward her all his junk email. That's not nice. After she was given 2 weeks' notice, the vindictive employee intentionally infected all the office computers with a virus. So vindictive means spiteful. Now, interestingly, we've had a couple of words that are related to this already. We had the word retaliate, and we also had the word reprisal. So vindictive means spiteful in the sense of vengeful or revengeful. Someone is vindictive when something bad has happened to them, and as a result, they want to punish the other person, normally in a way that is not fair, or is much worse than is appropriate. So, for example, this is the way in which vindictive is different than revenge. Revenge normally means someone has done something bad to you, hurtful and wrong to you, and that revenge means you're paying them back for the bad thing that they did to you. And that's what a reprisal is too, right? Someone has done something bad to you, and in return you're doing something bad to them. Vindictive is not necessarily the same. Vindictive means that someone has denied you something or has done something that you dislike, which may or may not be harmful, but your response is you want to hurt them and you want to punish them for the thing that they've done. And the way that you choose to do it is not appropriate. So in the first example, the woman turned him down for a date. That's not a horrible thing to do, to say no to someone who asks you out on a date. We should all be able to say yes and no to the people who we want to see. In this one, the older brother becomes vindictive. Just because she said no, he wants to hurt her or make her life hard by sending all of this junk email, which is not an appropriate response because he's punishing her in a much worse way than she punished him. In the second example, sometimes you get fired, but in this case, she's vindictive in that she's hurting a whole company and a whole lot of people by putting this virus there. Okay, so that's it. So go ahead and finish off your exercises and bring any questions that you have to class. Take care. See you in class. Bye.